Okay. Ooh, cool.
Does it say it?
Yeah, live on Facebook.
That's awesome. Now everybody's getting to see me staring at the computer really hard. No, I love this. Okay. Hi, Kaleidoscope. It's me again. I think you guys know me by now, but you do not know the other beautiful face that is on the side of the screen. Her name is Vanessa, and I've been saying your last name, Cuccia.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm like, oh, that's a high five for me. Because I'm normally not that good with it with names. So I'm just getting us all adjusted here. Perfect. And last but not least is to pull up the feed itself of what's going on in the Kaleidoscope, because chances are people are going to be talking to us in the live feed, right, and asking questions and things. In the meantime, ladies and gents, if you're on with us, okay, there we go. Let me turn it down. That's awesome. Now, there we go. Wonderful. If you're on with us, give me some hearts. Say something in the bottom so that I know who is doing what and if you are on. Great. Okay. So official intro. Hey, everybody. If you have not met me yet, if you've just joined in the group space in the community and you haven't seen this face, well, kind of get used to it because I pop up all the time. My name is Alexa. I'm the founder of the Violet Butterfly, the Kaleidoscope, which is the community space based off of, or the community rather, that's based off of the Violet Butterfly. TheVioletButterfly.com is the original blog. And then I know that you've heard me say this so many times, but I'm going to say it again, that the reason why everything is called a kaleidoscope is because a collection of butterflies is called a kaleidoscope. And I happen to think still, I've been saying this and talking about this for over a year now, still think it's one of the coolest things. Collection words are so much fun. But anyway, so we have you guys here in the community space, but you know that the Kaleidoscope also extends to the podcast, Kaleidoscope Radio. That also extends to everybody who follows Violet Butterfly, literally goes beyond, and the retreats, it just keeps going. It keeps going and going. And we love it. And 2018 is really exciting. We have big, exciting news. I'm currently in the midst of recording for the podcast, Kaleidoscope Radio. I have some awesome guests that are coming onto the show, including the guest that is on with me today. It's a special treat for you because I just decided yesterday, we were emailing back and forth. Vanessa and I were emailing back and forth, and I thought, you know what? She said, is this going to be video? And I thought, yes, it is. And I thought this before. I said, because of what your area of expertise is, we definitely have to get this onto live stream. And I normally don't do this. The only other time that I shared an actual podcast recording live versus, you just get to listen whenever it launches on iTunes, or I actually think we're doing a bid now to go onto Spotify, but I know we're in iTunes and Stitcher. But anyway, the only other time that I went live in the group space was when I had Meg from the Nookie Box on, and we started talking about all the different kinds of sex toys, and I actually had to show you what the sex toys were. So that was a fun episode, but I haven't had anyone on that I was like, you know what? It would be really amazing if I got live questions, because we talk about the spiritual aspect of sex all the time. So before I even really get too into because I felt it coming on, that I was ready to start talking, but I need to officially intro into the show. And so before I do that, let me one more double check into the group and make sure everybody is there. Awesome. And so we'll go ahead and get started so we can just get into all the juicy stuff. And I will check the questions after Vanessa and I really get to chatting, and then I'll see what you guys come up with. Okay. So my official recording, record it to the cloud. Welcome to Kaleidoscope Radio, a podcast all about sex, love, and relationships. This is your host, Alexa. Of course, you know, guys, by now that I always start every show with a little story about whatever the topic is for the day, or a story about how I found the guest of honor. So here's my story about how I found the guest of honor. So not that long ago, I don't know if you've been following me for a while or following the Violet Butterfly, then you would have known that I made a big trip to New York City. It was like my second try with New York City, because the first time I went and I spent a little time, I was really nervous the whole time that I was there. I was constantly lost, and I basically thought that the energy was so intense that I just wasn't going to leave the apartment that I was staying in while I was there. And I thought, you know what, you just need to get over it. And then when I heard Sexpo, which is the Sexual Health Expo, is going to be at the Brooklyn Expo Center. I thought, okay, I'm going to give New York City a second chance. I'm going to go and I'm going to stay with some friends. And I am going to, I think there were several of you in the Kaleidoscope that wound up coming to Sexpo and meeting me there. So I got to meet some of you for the first time. We even had our first like Kaleidoscope meetup, which was at Spin, that ping pong place. Goodness, there was as many of you actually that's coming to mind that I was able to see during this time. But anyway, I went and I was like, I'm going to go to this Sexpo thing. I'm going to actually officially network in person with people. And it's going to be great. And I reconnected with some amazing souls. And just to kind of round out what I was saying about New York, I wound up falling in love. And I like feel my heart pattering as I'm talking about it now. So the first time I did New York City wasn't all that great, but the second time, just the love, getting to meet some of you, and then really realizing the scope of the sex positive space that exists in New York City and how much amazing things are happening in that city, my heart just overflowed. But the highlight of my trip was getting to go to Sexpo, and there was literally everything. There were girls that were canning, which is like one end of the spectrum, I think, of like sex and sexuality. And then there was, you could go and you could buy a vibrator that was in the shape of an emoji. You could learn about sexual health with the Beam team at the Beam app. You could learn all kinds of different things. There were workshops going on. There were best-selling authors there. Reed Mahalko, the sex geek, was the host. And there was one day where I was wandering around and I was really absorbing, and I'm kind of quiet, but granted, if you really get into conversation with me, then you realize that I'm kind of calm on the outside, but I've got like all this energy on the inside, and I'm really passionate about making the world a more sex conscious space. And so I was wandering around, and I kind of went by some tables that were tantric tables, and or tantric, depending on how you want to say that. And the people that were there, and there were some yoni eggs and some crystals and incense and different things that were on the table. And I thought, you know what? I have an amethyst egg that I got at a metaphysical bookstore kind of vibe, and I enjoy it. And I got it because I'm obsessed with the color purple. And that was really the only reason why. And I'm recording live now, and some of you will get to actually see this video, and you'll see I'm literally sitting in front of a purple wall. My hair is purple. Usually my nails are purple. Like it's really intense. Violet butterfly, go figure. So that's why I wound up choosing the amethyst, but I didn't really have any other cues as to why I should choose an amethyst. But that's what I did. And so I was like, I'm thinking about getting another one. And I kind of was checking out the vibe of this particular booth and everything. And I thought, I'm just going to keep wandering around. It had that same kind of like hippie vibe to it. And I was like, okay. And if you know me, that's not really my style. It's not really my vibe. But I can go woo occasionally. It's like classy, elegant. At least I think so. Woo. So I turn the corner. I'm like moseying down, and I wind up seeing a display of yoni eggs again, and some, I'm going to call them wands, but we're going to get into what they're actually called and what their actual purpose is whenever I officially bring Vanessa in. So anyway, I turn the corner and I see this booth, and it's clean and it's elegant and it's sexy. And I'm like, ooh, what's happening over here? This is where I belong. These are my people. This is my vibe. This is my kind of spirituality that is a blend between a little bit of a nouveau kinds of vibe and concept with tradition. And I just thought it was so sleek and sexy. And then I turn the corner and I see who is going to be our guest of honor, who's going to be talking to you in just a moment here, sitting behind the table. And I thought, yes, her. Like she's gorgeous. She emanates this kind of cool, calm, collected, sassy, sexy vibe. And I'm like, if I'm going to choose a rock for my vagina, it's going to be something that she's dealing. And I say that in jest because it's a whole lot more than that. But I thought of it too. And I thought, oh my gosh, like this brand and the way that it looks, I could just feel and tell right away that it was my style. And so I wound up getting into a conversation with the founder and the creator of Chakrubs. And I wound up purchasing a yoni egg which I actually happen to have. So if you're going to see the actual video of this recording, then you'll see I'm holding up my Chakrubs little pouch here, and I have a clear quartz yoni egg. But I am really interested in gifting myself before the holidays an actual Chakrub, which we'll talk about here in just a second. But I wound up purchasing. I was so pleased and so happy with the entire experience. And I've been continuing following the founder's work, the creator's work, Vanessa. And I'm really excited because, as you know, if you've been a part of the community, you've probably been involved in at least looked at or read so many community members asking questions about crystals and how you can incorporate crystals and spirituality into your sex life and into your self-care or self-pleasure practices. And so I'm like so over the moon to actually officially welcome Vanessa onto the show. She's the creator and founder of Chakrubs. Thank you so much for coming onto the show and for doing the live stream.
Yeah, so happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Okay. So I know I just kind of painted a picture of like how I experienced your brand for the first time, but I really, really would love, that's kind of one of the whole points of Kaleidoscope Radio is getting the story behind whatever we're talking about, like the story behind the person who creates, the story behind the person who has this message or this mission. And I would love for you to share a little bit about who you are and where you're from and how you got to what you're doing now with this amazing brand, Chakrubs.
Cool. Yeah, I'm from Long Island, New York, and some people ask like when I first started getting into crystals, and I remember being really little, going for walks on the beach, the bluffs of Long Island with my family, and we would pick out these geodes on the beach, crack them open, and there would be crystals inside. So I always had a fascination with crystals. That's, really dear to me. And later on, when I developed Chakrubs, it was when I was living in LA, and I was working at an adult shop and also hosting a young spiritual teacher in my home who was teaching me all about metaphysics and energy work, things like that. And the reason I took the job at the adult shop was because I wanted to put myself in the middle of an environment with people that were sex positive, because not long before I took that job, I made the realization. You okay?
I was not expecting that.
Oh my God, I feel that.
I know. I was like, don't cough, don't cough, don't cough. But Scott's my producer. He will hear that I'm coming on and we'll edit it out of the podcast. Okay. I'm so sorry. So you put yourself in the middle of the sex positive environment.
Yes. I wanted to put myself in the middle of that environment because I had recently made the realization that my one and only serious relationship that I had been in for 6 years was sexually and emotionally abusive. And I kind of made this realization like, oh my God, I think I was like 22 at the time when I made the realization. I was like, wait a second, this is my life and I'm not satisfied sexually, and I know that I was compromising my core values. And so I got out of that relationship and really realized that I had developed a coping mechanism for dealing with sex with my boyfriend at the time, and I was disassociating from my body during sex. And so when I got out of the relationship and made those realizations, I wanted to put myself in that adult shop with people that were open to sex, and I wanted to reclaim what sexuality meant to me. So I had this great discount at the store, but I knew that I needed more than a really great vibrator to orgasm. I needed to reconnect to myself because I literally felt numb in my vagina. And so it was one night when I was with my spiritual friend who, the spiritualist, and we went to this woman's house, and she brought out just a regular crystal wand. And I realized that, it was kind of obvious, but crystals can be carved and polished into different shapes. And I was just, something immediately clicked. And it was, really felt like the crystals were talking to me about we can be used to help you reclaim sexuality. And the name Chakrubs just kind of plopped into my head. And for that, and I kind of like blurted it out. I was like, I said in this like spiritual meeting of the minds, like crystals would make great sex toys, you know, and everybody kind of like turned around at me and was like, what the hell is this little girl talking about? You know, these were like very like spiritual, intellectual people. And I was just tagging along, and I blurted this out, and it was kind of like, you know, they didn't respond to that, but my mind for the rest of the evening was just creating Chakrubs in my head. And yeah, so then I went up to, I moved up to Santa Cruz, where I lived in a house with musicians. I'm a musician, so I was invited to live at this house. It was very much so like a commune type of place. And I met this group of women. I told them all about the idea, and at first some people were still a little skeptical, but then like they became my focus group, and we all like drew our designs and talked about crystals, and a lot of research happened there. And then when I finally moved back to New York, that's when I really like went forward with the business. And that was after having the first prototypes made and tested with this focus group, and then doing a lot of like self-healing myself with the crystals.
Oh, that story was way better than I thought it was going to be.
There's so much more to this story, of course. Like there's little like nooks and crannies into everything that like, you know, it's really been, it really did feel like a calling, and the crystals really, like, I feel just, it was like their time to be recognized as a tool for healing sexual trauma. And I'm just like helping it do its thing.
Right. You're a vehicle.
Yeah.
It's like the download happens while it was right in front of you. And it's like, you know, I know what that's like. I know when that happens, and it's like the only thing that you have on your mind, and you really feel like it's much bigger than you. It's almost like, it's kind of frightening, where you're like, you're really entrusting me with this?
Yeah, I've gotten many ideas in the past, but this one was so clear. And the more I thought about it, the more it made sense, and the more it helped me. I knew that it would help other people. And yeah, it's just, I had never been so sure about anything in my life. And even though talking to people at the beginning, it was very like, aren't crystals like cold? Aren't they like rough? And like all these like doubts were coming out, but for nothing penetrated it. It was just like in my mind, and I knew that I had to do it.
Yeah, I love the fact that you use the word penetrate.
Yeah.
So when you say healing through the crystals, I mean, because I think about the times when I started dabbling in spirituality, it was like after a really intense Merkaba breathwork journey that I realized that, I don't know if you've ever done any of the breathwork stuff, like deep meditative, changing the state in your brain and everything. Or it's like with your breath, which is wild. It totally blew my mind, literally and figuratively. But it was after that I thought, okay, maybe these people are onto something with the spirituality stuff. And then I was obsessed with it. You know, and I'm in these bookstores, and I'm looking at chakra things, and I want to learn about oils and incense, and I want to learn about crystals, and I want all of these things. And eventually I got to whenever I chose my first yoni egg. But I mean, you know, spirituality in general, there's so many different facets to it. If we think specifically on healing, you know, how it heals, and then when you say healing trauma, what does that mean for you? How did that become something that you realize you could do with the crystals?
Yeah, I define spirituality as the awareness of your spirit, which just means like you were here before you were born, you're here after you die. So this is a time of your spiritual journey where you're a human. So being human is all about, to me, the senses. So touch and smell and taste and hearing and all these things are sensual. And that's really what it is. So when your senses are compromised in a way that like physical touch becomes something that evokes an emotional hurt or emotional numbness, you're disconnected from your spirit. You're disconnected from why you're a human, which is to really indulge in your senses and to feel. And I do believe that we have the ability to work through things without anything else, just with our hearts. I think, you know, that ability is within us. But as humans, we've always looked to tools to help us. So that's
Right.
another part of being human. So crystals, I really see value in the fact that you can touch it. You can touch it, you can hold it. It's a tangible thing. And then when it comes to it being crystal, rather than using a sex toy that's made of silicone or stainless steel or, you know, any other type of material that sex toys are typically made from, crystals have that metaphysical aspect to it. And the more that I learned about it, the more it made sense for me. And so really bonding with this tool that is meant to not only give me pleasure, but to facilitate energy movement in my body, it just made sense. And I don't know if you want to go into like how crystals work and things like that, but that's why crystals, like, you know, are valuable as a thing to touch that have this meaning to them. So when you're working with that and your sexual energy, it is just more profound and more.
Absolutely. And when you say, right, this is our time as a human, that is a very, 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 it's like a minuscule amount of time, the whole grand scheme. And a lot of these crystals are so old. Even just saying so old is not even really defining it properly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They've been existing and absorbing and having this air of, I almost don't even know how to describe it, mystery, and mystical kind of qualities. Right. You know, I can imagine if you go about engaging with them in a very conscious, heart-centered, or with certain kind of intention, I can't see anything other than a means to heal.
Absolutely. It's really a good focus point. And then when you bring in that fact that they are formed with the earth, they hold consciousness like the earth does, and they're beautiful because of their molecular structure, and that molecular structure allows them to emanate a very harmonious frequency. And anytime you share space with a harmonious frequency, your energy is becoming more like that of the crystal. You know, we're very sensitive. Our energy changes depending on what we eat, how much sleep we get, you know, whatever factors there are. But crystals, their energy is much more pure. They're releasing goodness. And so they're
like that they're releasing goodness while you go to have your release of pleasure, right? So I mean, that's a perfect, I couldn't think of a more perfect segue there to shift gears a little bit, because we're talking now about, you know, the formation, why we chose crystals. And I say we because I'm just like so absorbed in your story.
Yes. I love it.
So we've chosen, and how we got to the name and everything. But thinking about how you use it for pleasure, you know, and reconnecting with the body, I would love to hear your take on what it takes in order to really get that proper release, and what constitutes of a good orgasm and a good engagement with the crystal in order to get you there. How do you take this? I want to say, how do you take this shit to the next level? How do you really get the most out of engaging and interacting with something so potent and so special like one of the crystals?
Yeah, the more you spend time with crystals, the more sensitive you're going to be to their energy. So some people are very sensitive to energy, and if they pick up a crystal, they'll feel it right away. But not everybody can sense that right away, or not everybody knows that they can. But everybody can kind of understand what it means to feel aroused to some degree. That's an energy that's very easily detectable. So it's like, okay, I feel sexual energy, and a thought can ignite that sexual energy. So being aware that you can conjure up sexual energy is the first step in understanding how to really feel crystal energy. So the other thing with Chakrubs is that it encourages people to quiet down and meditate to be able to feel that subtle energy of the crystal. In order to do that, in order to get really sensitive to subtle energy, takes the same amount of dedication that it does to quiet down your mind during any other sexual act. So that in itself is a practice.
It sounds like meditation.
It is meditation.
It is a meditation, yeah.
So for people that really want to go deep into feeling the crystal energy, when you do that, when you reach that point through meditation, through, charging and your crystals and everything like that, and really feeling the energy of that, you can understand again how to conjure that sexual energy. It works both ways. If you can learn to be sensitive enough to feel crystal energy, you can learn to be sensitive enough to a slight touch and feel that really profoundly. But that being said, anybody that wants to start a practice with Chakrubs for pleasure, it's still just a great sex toy. You can, you can just, if you're just looking to include more pleasure into your life with something that is made from the earth, natural, and has like all these metaphysical benefits, but you don't even have to like be so cognizant of that. You can literally use it as you would
a normal sex toy.
A normal sex toy. You can combine it with a vibrator. Like you can just do that and know that you're doing something good for yourself. The symbol of Chakrubs is to release shame, to give acknowledgement to the beauty of self-pleasure. So even if you're just doing it on that level and exploring what feels good on that sense, you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing.
All this good stuff. But it makes perfect sense, and I think some people who are not so sure, because you don't have to be a very spiritual person to look at crystals and go, wow, that's a really pretty sleek thing. Yeah. And if its purpose is to put inside of my body, but if I have the choice between a silicone butt plug or a silicone based dildo or something like that, which you really have no idea sometimes if you don't know what you're looking for and you read the packaging, or you do or you don't read the packaging, you could be putting toxins, you could be putting things that are porous and take bacteria, you know what I mean? When you look at crystals and you think, wow, it just looks so clean, it looks so pretty, it looks so like, why wouldn't you want to choose that? Not always over the other things, because some of the other stuff is this great products and they're very sex positive and maybe they don't have anything wrong with them. But would say definitely outside of the spirituality, just the fact that they're pretty clean and cool. Yeah. That's one thing. And then the next thing is that, you maybe it's not important to you, but you're healing yourself and you're being affected regardless. Speaking, and even as I just said that now, I was waiting. I was like, Alexa, you can't start talking about the shadow line right away. I said that leading up because I was like, that was the other reason why I was a little bit obsessed with the line. It was, and I didn't want to say it right away because I wanted to lead into it. But I was like, oh my God, but you said butt plug already, so you have to because that was the other reason why I was a little bit obsessed with Chakrubs, is because it wasn't just the yoni eggs, which we have several questions about the yoni eggs versus the wand, which I would love for you to give us a differentiation between, when you started to do the yoni eggs and why, and maybe the three most common materials or the stones and the crystals that are used and why. That's one thing. And I'll kind of help us make sure we go through all these things. And the other thing is that, how I was obsessed. I saw those things and then I saw the shadow line, which I will full on let you talk about because that's right up my alley, no pun intended. Okay, so maybe start with the original line and the difference between yoni eggs and Chakrubs and things like that.
Cool. So, right. So when I first started Chakrubs, it was all about the wand, which I do call the Chakrub. So this, is the heart that's made from rose quartz. And this is the slim version, but we also have the original size, which is larger. And again, when I created it, I was creating it as a means to release shame about masturbation and pleasure. And with the yoni eggs, I started carrying yoni eggs a couple of years after I started Chakrubs because people were asking me for them. So the yoni egg practice was really introduced to me from my community, my network of followers that felt trust for Chakrubs and my brand, and were asking about yoni eggs. So it was actually introduced to me from other people, and so while Chakrubs is really based on that self-love in terms of pleasure and releasing shame when it comes to masturbation, yoni eggs has similar values. Plus, their main purpose is really to strengthen the muscles and increase blood flow. And, there's yoni egg practices and things like that. So that's really the difference. And the three most popular materials or crystal types for the yoni eggs is jade. Jade was the original crystal used for yoni eggs. It's an ancient Chinese practice that we found dated back to like 2,000 years ago. So jade was the original stone that was used, but now there's the other ones that are most popular, I would say, are the rose quartz and the obsidian.
Yeah, there was a few people that were talking about different ones that they'd chosen. And I think those are the ones that I would list off of the top of my head as well.
Yeah.
Just quickly, what does a typical practice look like to use the yoni egg?
So I recommend doing a yoni egg practice for 15 to 20 minutes. So people do go longer. I go longer. I'll just have them in and, but for people that are concerned with letting juices flow and everything like that, safety is, most important. So if you feel like, that's too long to have an object in you, 15 to 20 minutes is fine. And then of course you always want to clean everything after. So for 15 to 20 minutes, you can do a yoga that, yoga poses that, while keeping the egg in. So that's engaging your muscles, your core and your pelvic floor. And there's advanced yoni egg practices, which some come with a drilled hole, and you can put a string around it, and you can do vaginal weightlifting, made popular by Kim Anami. She does the vaginal weightlifting things. I lift with my vagina. And then you can also do things like tugging on the yoni egg while contracting the muscles. And then the other really important part of a yoni egg practice is learning to release or birth the egg. So it's really important to note that when you're doing an exercise, it's not only about contracting the muscle, it's about relaxing the muscle. So really learning how to relax your muscle the other way is gaining that full range of motion for the muscle, which, if people have things like incontinence or, numbness in the vagina, it might not just be because they need stronger muscles. It might be because their muscles aren't relaxed enough. So that's something that's not usually given a lot of clout, is that you might be,
squeezing all the time.
Squeezing too much, and you need to learn to relax. So doing that practice of really learning how to birth the egg is really valuable.
Yes, so first off, I will say the chances are that everyone who's listening is squeezing their PC muscles right now. That's first off. I am one of those people. It's like, I just had to think for a second, because I was like, really, You're an amazing guest. I'm loving your story. I'm loving how you're communicating because I'm like wrapped up. And then I have to snap myself out of it, which doesn't happen very often where I'm like, whoa, you're talking back, you know? But I'm sitting here and I'm thinking whoever's going to be who's going to actually see the live stream, I was so wrapped up just now. I totally had the look of, she is squeezing her vaginal muscles right now.
I love it. Yeah, let's all take a second, relax.
And there you go. But yeah, so I mean, and the thing is, yeah, incontinence is one of the things, but you know, because that's not something that I struggle with, where I have never had any children. That's not, you know, it's not something that, so when I think about it, I think healing, practicing, those purposes too. But then I think, you know, actual active sex, what does that do? You know, making sure that you have strong PC muscles you have strong vaginal muscles. My mind immediately goes to like, how will my partner like that? You know, how can I use the fact that I can control, you know, from my core all the way down? Because if you're practicing, you're very acutely aware of what's going on down there. Right. And then I completely agree, about the whole birthing thing, because there was a moment when I put it in for the first time and I was like, how am I going to get this little fucker out of here? You know, like that was that. And I'm like putting my fingers in there and I'm like trying to catch it. And my poor amethyst has hit the bottom of the toilet at least twice.
Yeah, it happens.
Right. I forgot. I mean, well, those 2 times I obviously forgot. And then there was the one time where I went to forget and I caught right away. And I'm like doing, like, my hands were in the air. Like, you did it. Yeah. You know, it was really silly. So paying attention to all those things. Before, because I mean, I think that my next question really goes for both the chakrub and the yoni egg is how you charge it. You said something about charging it, and I only recently, like, I got my amethyst and started using it before I ever considered what that meant.
Yeah. So with crystals, even the practice of so for chakrubs and yoni eggs, you know, you want to practice good hygiene, obviously. And when, you know, even something like giving it a bath is, you know, something that is, the way that I like to think of it, it's symbolic of you taking care of your sexual identity. So these objects represent you in a sense, how you treat your sexual identity or how you treat your emotional intelligence, things like that. So, you know, you want to always, of course, cleanse your crystals, make sure that they're clean, but then cleansing the energy also. So crystals, there's some, with people that are really, really heavy into like crystal healing and stuff, it's, people will say like you have to cleanse your crystal of the energy because they're, you know, they're conduits. So they're working with your own energy. So there's chances that they're picking up certain things from you. Some people say that crystals are self-cleansing. When they really need it, they'll do it themselves. But to offer your crystal a cleansing ceremony where you're cleansing that energy, and to me, it's very symbolic of recognizing the work that you've done with your chakrub or your yoni egg and releasing that. So when working with chakrubs, particularly ones made of obsidian, which are said to release negative energy, you know, things like memories might be conjured up, or just, you know, emotions, things that you've repressed or not processed quite yet. And so to do a cleansing ceremony is for the crystal, but it's also for you to recognize, yes, I did that work and now I'm releasing it. So there's 2 parts of like crystal care, which is cleansing it and then charging it. So cleansing it means releasing that energy that, you know, may have been conjured up. And you can do that by a few things. You can do it through intention, meditation, visualizing white light going through the crystal. You could do it with sound healing, sound vibration, putting it on your piano and just like playing like some really nice tones is way.
I'm totally, I don't think my crystals would like me playing on a piano.
One note is good. It's just
okay. If that's the case, then cool. Definitely they won't like me singing to this.
Yeah, just one tone. Or you can put it in, you could put it in a bath in like some warm water with a couple of drops of lavender and tea tree oil, which, we're going to, cleanse the energy, but they're also antiviral, antibacterial.
Exactly.
You can rest it on a bed of uncooked rice overnight to absorb that energy. So that's cleansing. And then charging is the practice of placing your crystals in things that are going to engulf it or infuse it with a certain energy. So a lot of people use the moon.
We just had a huge, and if you're listening to this recording and it happens to be a little bit farther, this was the super moon in December in 2017. We just had that.
Yeah.
That was really intense. Did you do a ritual?
Oh yeah.
You're like, oh yeah.
Oh yeah. And I don't always do like moon rituals, but this one I did for sure.
I did a big one in November. I actually hosted a retreat that was all about seduction and sorcery. So it was, I brought the seduction stuff, and then I had my co-facilitator, her name's Leah Barnett. She came and she brought all the rituals.
Nice.
And we did a huge like releasing ceremony. It made me think I want to do this every month because it's just fun to put it all together. And it just heals your soul.
It does. To do these things like rituals, they are so powerful. And I think that, for many of us, religion is valuable to the point that you practice your spiritual beliefs religiously. But I think with many of us on a more spiritual path that aren't necessarily in one type of religion, and we're more kind of like creating our own means of feeling connected, doing things religiously for your spirituality is really beneficial because you're just reminding yourself, okay, I need to process, or I need to release, or I need to charge.
Integrate. Yeah, for sure. So I didn't mean to steer us off. So charging in the moon is one way. I got way too excited. I was like, she's going to talk about the moon, and I'm really excited about this.
Yeah, charging in the moon. You can also charge them in the sun. So depending on what kind of energy you want infused into your crystal, the sun or the moon.
I need to do that. I'm so a Leo. It's not even funny. So I will just go sit and bask with it. Ugh, okay. I didn't think of that. I don't know why I didn't think of that.
So and then there's other things that you can do. You can put them on a bed of roses, things like that. There's lots of.
That's so sweet, of course. Yes, and you're like, yes, I want to put this into my body and absorb all of this goodness.
Yeah,
just makes sense. Okay, so if we shift just specifically to the chakra, which it was a little bit tricky because I wanted to call it a chakra, but I wasn't sure if anyone would know what I was talking about. But I knew when I was mentioning that you were coming onto the show, I knew that I didn't want to call it a crystal dildo because it's I want to let dildos be dildos because this isn't that.
Right.
And I don't even associate any of that with it. So I wasn't really sure, I wanted to call it a chakra, but I wasn't really sure, I'll let you kind of take over what that means for you.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I know that people are going to describe it in a way that makes it understood for them. Right. So some people will call it a dildo because that makes it clear that, yes, this is used for pleasure, internal, and then with wand, yes, people are going to describe it as a wand. I call them wands sometimes, but there's different configurations of crystals, and wand is one of those configurations. So wand typically is a crystal that has, points on the end, and it's a type of crystal used for crystal healers or people working with crystals to direct energy. And while crystals are like that, they're not that configuration. So that's one of the reasons. But a Chakrub, that name was given to me by the crystals that popped into my head, and that is what they are. And it encompasses everything that this is about, which is pleasure, which is self-love, healing, And the thing with calling it a dildo is the definition of dildo is a something like it's a replication of the anatomical.
Right. It's phallic.
Yeah.
It's based off of a phallus.
Based off of a phallus. Exactly.
This isn't based off of a phallus. It just so happens it's in a very sleek kind of shape, but in no way, shape, or form, when I look at a chakrub, do I think phallus.
Right. And
something very personal to me. That's what I would think. Exactly.
And to me, when I recall drawing the designs with my group of friends who are women, none of us drew a penis. We were not drawing that. And to me, what this shape represented to me was my space.
Right.
My sacred space within me, which, it tapers at the bottom and everything like that. So that is why I stay away from calling it a dildo, but I don't, there's nothing wrong with dildos. There's nothing wrong with,
it's just different.
It's just different. And the word chakrubs, it's very important to me. And that truly describes what it is.
I love it. I love it. So there was something, I don't know what you just said that made me think of this, though, even though we were talking about it from a space of, just assuming that the chakrub is going to go into a vaginal space, it makes me wonder if this is something that is played with anally. But then that also kind of leads me into when, you develop the shadow line, because I think of some of the pieces that are involved in that. And, I wonder if this is something that I would say, and I don't even want to say gay men, because men of all orientations like anal play. Mm-hmm. That's definitely that's something that we talk about a lot of times in the community space. And to really take the shame away from that, because, for a lot of us, it's been passed down that if you're a man, if you are, I would say a biosex, if you were assigned a man at birth, if I'm going to go ahead and be, politically correct, and you happen to like some kind of play that is with your anus, then that must mean that you're gay, and that's very shameful, and yada, yada, yada. But in today's world, it's not the typical conversation doesn't usually go like that. It's usually a safer space to say, I do like that, and I do enjoy that. So it makes me wonder, this isn't limited to women. Mm-hmm. I would be men using this with women to enjoy and be able to participate maybe in their practice or to connect with them. Granted, I know that that's not necessarily what it's about, mm-hmm. but I wonder if it's something that men would be interested in as far as, anal play or something like that.
Absolutely. The original chakrub design it doesn't have a base, so we can't promote it for use with the anus.
I love that you just made that distinction. I talk about that all the time when people start talking about putting things inside of their butts. And there's this standing joke. It happened in the last episode. It's going to happen in this one too, where it's like, let's just wait for Alexa to start talking about butt sex. Because she can't, I can't not talk about it. But I always say that. I'm like, you can put them in there as long as there's a base.
Yeah. Right.
I love that. Okay.
So, people are going to do what they're going to do, but, you have to really make that distinction, because there's so many, there's dangers with that if it doesn't have a base. So the shadow line, I did create products that have, some of them have a base, and they're specifically made for anal play. So that whole idea with the shadow line was to open up to people that have male bodies, or might be.
I know it's so hard to approach and want to say the words that you have available without offending. Granted, the majority of the community and the Kaleidoscope know how conscious I am, as well as everyone that comes onto the show. Yeah. So it's like, no one's gonna rip into you if you don't say it.
Yeah, trying to, still learning every day.
We're all doing the best that we can with what we have, right?
Absolutely. But yeah, okay. So that was created with that in mind, and also the shadow line, like we talked about before, was created to to have products that could be used anally, and then also to have products that make the statement of something doesn't have to necessarily look spiritual for it to be sacred or, you know, spiritually inclined. So, you know, that's why the shadow line was fetish inspired, and yeah.
And there's my big smile, like fetish inspired. And I agree. And that's before I even kind of go in the direction I was just going to go in, I had someone on the live stream ask, why does a base matter? Which I think that you kind of touched on it there, but just to clarify that a base is important for anal play, because unlike the vagina ends, right? But just like, you know, any woman wouldn't worry about a tampon getting stuck, because you know that it can only go so far. And you can always put, you know, your fingers in and within that space, remove whatever is in there. However, when you pass a certain point in the anus, you don't have any more control. You basically only have control over the anal sphincter that is contracting and relaxing. And then once you get past that, you're basically into the autonomic nervous system and you don't really have any control. So if you don't have a base on something, you can't feel once it's past the point of like you being able to push it out. And my sister is a nurse practitioner, and I have heard so many colorful things getting stuck up there. And so, you always want to make sure that you have a base or a loop or something that you can reach up there and pull whatever out. And so now I have Vanessa going into, you know, what her shadow line is about is kink and fetish inspired. And we talk about kink and fetish in the Kaleidoscope space a lot, because I promise everybody has a kink. It's just a matter of acknowledging what it is and being okay with it and releasing the shame around it. And so we talk release again, and we talk like shame and healing and all those things. When you've just taken crystals, which are some of the most powerful things that you could possibly use in order to create a practice of healing and release and everything. And I mean, it's so freaking sexy. The line is so sexy. Can you tell everybody a little bit about what some of the products are? I just love them, what they're made of and why they're made of that.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. The shadow line is made mainly from obsidian crystal. So obsidian, which I have an obsidian mirror right here that I can show you. Obsidian is really sleek black. Yeah,
I just want to like lick it. It's so sexy.
I know. So I love obsidian. My desk is glass, but it's like black glass and it looks obsidian. So obsidian was used as early mirrors, and it's a type of volcanic glass. So it was used as an early mirror. So it represents meeting repressed aspects of yourself and your shadow self, which is things that you're not aware of, that you might have, like, you know, shamed part of who you are because you deemed it as bad. And so what obsidian does, and a lot of people actually say obsidian is a negative crystal and they're afraid of it, but that's because it's showing you these parts of who you are that you might not like. So it's very intense.
Right. And I love that you've chosen that for the kink stuff.
Right. So
right.
That's what, so when I pretty much early on, when I started Chakrubs, I was working with, at the time it was Onyx, which is very similar, but I was working with that. And, you know, here I am developing this brand that's all about self-love and, you know, all this good stuff. But then my mind, what was coming up for me was a lot of like kinky stuff and a lot of, you know, fetish-based stuff. And I'm like, how do I marry these two things so that I don't feel like a hypocrite? Because here I am like promoting self-care and self-love, and then I'm imagining myself being like spanked or choked and like, what the hell is going on? For starting that, it was like, whatever. So I was just like, kind of like, you know, for me, I had to make the statement. And that's what it is for me. The shadow line is very much so an art project, and their sculptures and what they represent is very important to me. And what that represents is that every part of who you are is sacred and spiritual if you give the attention that it is. So even if your spiritual practice expands beyond, sitting in a corner and meditating, even though that's valuable, it's just as valuable to experience, kinky sex and have your mind and emotions be experiencing something else. So something like I just lost the word, like dominance or submission, things like that, like trusting somebody to control you in a way. And so those experiences are just as meaningful and important as mindfulness. And you are mindful in those experiences.
It's essentially the same thing, just looked at as, like you're saying, it's the shadow version of it. Yes. I don't mean to cut you off. I'm just
no. I don't mean to.
This is more, and it is. It's like I'm like, I want to use them all. The nunchucks, the ball gags. It's not even I call them nunchucks, but they're not. Are they nunchucks? I'm like, this could be double-sided dildo.
That's our version of the double-sided dildo. So
it's amazing. No, and I love that, and I work with clients. I do work with clients one-on-one still, and it's like, how to get them to go into like exploring what kink is, but it's like, oh, there's just this, I don't know. And what happens when I know too much and then I'm lost. And then all of a sudden I'm this weird kinkster person, and they think that they'll just know too much and they'll be absorbed by this. Or they think that they might have these spiritual practices and they can't coexist. But I am such a firm believer in frolicking in the gray area. The gray area. I love the word ambiguous, but because I want to reclaim it, I want to be that enigma where it's like, you're not quite sure. It's like the bliss point, right? The perfect combination of salty and sweet and light and dark and all of those things. It's like, it's the bliss point. It's where you can't get enough.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that with the shadow line, and then you counter it with the traditional Chakrub line, it's literally the bliss point. And it's something that I am acutely aware of with brands and with other people in the sex positive space, which is probably one of the main reasons why, as soon as I caught, the booth at Sexpo when I first met you, I was like, this is it. She's got the bliss point, and it comes from a place of good intention, and it comes from a place of consciousness. You know what I mean? And yes, I'm a very friendly person, and I pass compliments like it's no big deal, but I think you can feel it right now. Like, I legitimately love it for more reasons than one, obviously. But the fact that you can literally, take, say, this act, and I go back to, talking about my one-on-one clients, where it's like, you're going to go into this, but go into it from this place. Like, you're going to go there, but let's look at all the light that's in your life, and let's take that light and shine it on the dark so that your light shines brighter. It kind of funnels in that way. When you shine the light on the dark and you embrace it, and you incorporate that into who you are as an authentic being, then all of the other areas that are light get brighter. And that spot that you were looking at that was dark is actually fun to play in. And I think that you are, I have Susie, I was just like, Alexa, taking notes. She's taking notes.
Love it.
That is so good. Okay. We've officially been talking for quite some time now, and I could seriously probably have this conversation for a whole lot longer. There were a few things that I know we didn't get into, but I'm sure that they're on the Chakrub website, but that would be like, when you're going to choose which crystal you want to use, how do you make that distinction, and how do you know what's right for you? There's a few things, this is what I said actually in another community space where someone was asking about wands and asking about yoni eggs and things. And some people were like, oh, you can find it here and you can find it there. And there's Etsy. And sometimes you can get them wholesale. And I'm thinking, do you really want to pay? Do you really want to budget for something you're going to put inside of your sacred creative space? Are we really talking budget here? And then I remembered that it wasn't my community. And I was like, we don't talk like that in my community, because you're going to pay for quality, because that's the way that it goes. Like, this is literally going into your body. You have to pay for the quality.
And it's also because the nature of crystals, they can be thousands of years old. Chakrubs is a sex toy company. We are a registered sex toy company. And, with metaphysical shops and things like that, if you're buying something to put inside of you, this is guaranteed that it's never been owned by somebody else. It was created for you. So that's an important distinction also.
Yeah, absolutely. So that all factors in when deciding what kind of crystal you're going to have. And, there's just lots of things. So first off, this is a premium luxury brand that you represent, which I have already said I love like 1,000 times during this episode. But I'm sure like whenever you go to the site, you're going to get to see all of these things broken down. I'm not saying I'm sure. I was looking at the website earlier today because I was like, I need the perfect Christmas gift to myself is going to be one of the Chakrubs, right? I already have a yoni egg. Now it's time to move on to the Chakrub. Granted, I'm probably going to hover somewhere around the obsidian ball gag and be like, what can I use this for?
You're right. Like, just walking around the house with it. It's a very sexy. If you see it,
I know.
More pictures of it because it's fucking sexy as.
I know. You can drop it. You can just post it with no caption into the Kaleidoscope. It's fine. Just be like, here's the obsidian ball gag. Cool. But I'm sure on the site too, it'll be descriptions or some kind of way to experience which one to choose. And I think when I went to start by talking about it being a premium brand and paying for what you get, it was more like, there are times when I'm thinking, the feel of the crystal, sometimes, I would say like, I like to choose them in person, but I trust Chakrubs because I've seen your products in person and all of them felt good. It was really difficult to choose, the one that I wanted to take home with me because they all felt good already because the creator is infusing. When I say creator, like you have infused it already with your good intentions.
Yeah.
You've already done the first foundational.
Yeah, there's like a lot of love in these crystals.
There's a lot of love. You can feel it. You can feel that. So is there info on, which crystals would normally be used for what? Do you have access to that info?
Yeah, every product page has the description of the crystal and the metaphysical uses of it. We're also we're a small independent company. And so like, we're here, we're like always available, to answer questions. If you have anything that's not answered on the site, but we have a blog that, reaches a span of a lot of topics. And we're just like, love it. Beautiful.
While you're chatting, I'm just giving them another look because I showed this at the very beginning. For those of you who are listening to the podcast and not seeing the actual video, I'm just holding up my clear quartz to the camera so that everybody could see it while Vanessa's chatting.
Yeah, so all the information is there about the crystal and we're always there to answer questions. It's very available.
I know. I feel like I should tell everybody I chose clear quartz. And then I'm showing it to everyone because I'm sure someone will say, well, why did you pick that clear one? That wasn't any of the ones that she mentioned. I usually hold like a clear quartz in my bra when I fly because that's my most creative time. And I always want clear and I want clarity and I want a clear access point to, getting those downloads. And I just, for some reason, when I think of clear quartz, that's what comes to mind. So that's what it means to me.
Yeah.
Kind of that cleansing, clarity, protective, clear. I don't know. That's where it was with me. So that's why I chose that one because I had a feeling that someone would wind up asking why. But I'm sure there's a whole lot more to what the clear quartz is about if I just go to www.chakrubs.com.
Yes.
This has been amazing. I would love for you to quickly tell us some of the other fun things that you might have going on. I know you mentioned a book that's going to be releasing springtime or summertime in 2018?
It goes on pre-order in January and then it's going to be released in June, but it's called Crystal Healing and Sacred Pleasure. And really excited about it because really going through the philosophies that were developed from creating Chakrubs, and it's about using crystals to awaken your sexual energy, but it's beyond that. It's using the chakra system as a map for gaining emotional intelligence and self-awareness and spiritual connection. So it's going to be a beautiful book. And in January, when it goes on pre-order, I am looking forward to releasing meditation tracks to help you connect to your crystals.
Oh, that's wonderful. That is so, so, so necessary. I've been recently thinking about doing like meditations that get you in certain mindsets for certain sex practices. And that sounds like gold. And just listening to you throughout this whole conversation. And I know that you have, like, this is just one of many kinds of conversations that you have that are very similar. I couldn't think of a better person. You know, you have like the full, well-rounded insight about how this works, because I mean, it happened just like the violet butterfly and all this kaleidoscope nonsense that I have going on that I am super fond of. It happened to me, right? It was handed to me, and now I run with it. This, you know, Chakrubs was handed to you, and now you run with it. It's beautiful. I would love if you kept myself and the community and, you know, kept us in the loop. Absolutely. Because I know that there's a lot of people that want more. They definitely want more than just this hour-long conversation, you know, worth of information. And so I respect you and I love the brand. So I would love if you kept us in the loop with how we can support you and how, because people just want the information in general. You know, I want to support, they want the info. Actually, I'm somewhere in the middle, but that would be lovely. And I wonder as well, if there's something you can do for us as a community. I mean, Christmas is coming up because we're in the month of December now. I'm sure some people are going to want to go to the site and probably purchase. Can we have a little something? I'm asking without asking before we started recording, so I'm totally putting you on the spot right now.
No. That's totally cool. We're going to, when we get off, we're going to do a discount code for your community, and you'll have a link for that. So we'll I guess post it.
Yeah, absolutely. We can get it set up, and I will make a separate post in the space, and I'll share that all over the place. Share that all. Amazing. I love that, because I didn't get a discount on my yoni egg, but I will on the Chakrub. So there we have it. Vanessa, anything else that you would like to share with the Kaleidoscope community?
I told you when we first met, but my cat is in the back. I don't know if you know. But my name means butterfly. So I love what you taught me about kaleidoscope and the butterflies. That means a lot to me. I think that's
oh my God, it's divine connection.
Yes.
as they usually are.
Yes. But yeah, thank you so much for having me and for your questions and everything. It's been lovely.
I agree. I absolutely do concur. Again, Kaleidoscope, it's been awesome having you as a part of this community for sure. As you know, Kaleidoscope Radio, it only exists because, well, you guys listen to it. and you ask for more of it. And on that note, if there's somebody that you know, or there's a topic that you wish for us to get involved in, then make sure Alexa@thevioletbutterfly.com. Feel free. Go ahead and send me what's on your mind. Let me know if there's a theme or a person or some kind of topic we need to get into. Then I would be more than happy to do so. It's of course always a pleasure to host, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart for allowing me to have some kind of part in your sexploration and you becoming a more positive and well-rounded sexual creature. I don't take that lightly, and I love you every single day for that. So thank you for listening, and I look forward to having you on the next episode. Yay! We did it. We're still live streaming, but podcast is done.
Cool.
Awesome. I think we took us all over the place, but I think we covered everything.
It was great. So great. Thank you so much.
Of course. Absolutely. So I'm going to be in New York. So all of my Kaleidoscope family that is in New York, of course, the New York is calling me back again. I'll be there for New Year's. So I don't know. Yeah, it would be amazing if some of the community gets together, or if you've got something going on, you're showcasing Chakrubs and we can come support. Please let us know.
Awesome. We'll do.
All right, Kaleidoscope. It's been real. So if you've got more questions and things, then you can put them in the space. We'll try to get your questions answered. I think we covered the majority of them while we were recording. And Vanessa and I will have a chit chat, and we will have a private link for you guys if you want to go ahead and order some Chakrubs products, whether that be for you or you want to do that for someone that you love. I think for some of the gentlemen that are in the group, that is a very unique gift that you can give and it doesn't border a line of, why are you giving me a sex toy? It's like, oh my gosh, this is a gorgeous thing that I can also have this amazing amount of pleasure with. And it's meant for me to connect with myself, which means me connecting with myself is going to help me to connect with you. So I can't think of a better, really outside of the box kind of gift to give, a woman in your life that you love. So consider that. We'll drop some links for you guys to order. And I think the next time that you see my face, it'll be on Friday with Gaia to do Freaky Fridays. All right. See you later.